Samantha Green had always been the picture of health, or so she thought. At 34 years old, she juggled a demanding job as a marketing executive, her two energetic children, and an active social life. She fueled herself on coffee, grabbed protein bars between meetings, and often skipped meals, telling herself that gut health was just another passing wellness trend. She couldn't have been more wrong. It started with minor things. Samantha noticed occasional bloating after meals, but she brushed it off as normal. Everyone feels bloated sometimes, right? She had bouts of constipation that she'd fix with a fiber supplement here and there. She even had strange episodes of fatigue, waves of tiredness that would hit her like a truck at random times, but she blamed those on her busy lifestyle. By the time she noticed her skin breaking out in unusual ways and her nails becoming brittle, her body was already trying to scream for attention, but Samantha wasn't listening. At a family barbecue one weekend, Samantha's sister, Jenna, a nurse, noticed how pale and tired she looked. "You okay, Sam? You look..." "I don't know, drained," Jenna said, handing her a lemonade. "I'm fine," Samantha said quickly, forcing a laugh. "Just work stress." But as Samantha sipped her drink, she felt a sudden sharp cramp in her stomach. She doubled over slightly, but again, she smiled and waved it off. Just something she ate, she thought. At night, Samantha would often wake up feeling nauseous or oddly anxious. Sometimes her heart would pound for no reason. She started relying on melatonin gummies to fall asleep, but even those didn't help much. She felt herself becoming more irritable, snapping at her kids over little things and distancing herself from friends. Something was wrong, but in her mind, it couldn't be her gut. After all, she wasn't having any serious stomach problems, just small annoyances. Then came the brain fog. During an important client presentation, Samantha completely blanked out. Words she had practiced dozens of times refused to come. She stood there, stammering, her heart racing, her palms sweating. It was humiliating. That night, sitting in her car after work, Samantha cried for the first time in months. It wasn't sadness exactly. It was confusion, fear, frustration at not knowing why she felt so broken when, by all external appearances, she had everything under control, but her body knew. Inside her gut, years of poor diet, high stress, antibiotics, and neglect had slowly stripped away the protective army of good bacteria she desperately needed. Without it, harmful microbes had taken over, creating inflammation that wasn't just trapped in her intestines, it was leaking into her bloodstream, silently affecting her brain, her skin, her immune system, and even her mood. The gut-brain axis, the invisible highway connecting her digestive system to her mental health, was flashing warning lights everywhere. And Samantha? She was still ignoring the signs until one day, her body gave her no choice. It was supposed to be a normal Tuesday. Samantha rushed through the morning like always, packing lunches, sending emails, and squeezing in a few sips of coffee between tasks. Her stomach cramped slightly as she dropped the kids off at school, but she shook it off. No time for that. By noon, the cramps had worsened. She was at her desk, trying to review a marketing proposal when a wave of dizziness hit her so hard that she had to grip the table to stay upright. Her heart thudded erratically in her chest. Her vision blurred. "Hey, Sam, you okay?" her coworker Peter asked, noticing her pale face. "I'm fine," she whispered. But she wasn't. The room tilted. Cold sweat broke out across her forehead. Her breathing grew shallow. Then everything went black. When Samantha came to, she was in an ambulance. The EMT above her was speaking into a radio. "Female, 34, altered mental status, hypotensive, possible sepsis or acute abdomen." Samantha tried to move, but her limbs felt heavy, foreign. Panic rose in her chest. "What's happening to me?" she thought, tears sliding down her temples. At the hospital, a team of doctors swarmed her. Blood draws, IVs, oxygen masks, it was all a blur. Jenna arrived within an hour, panic etched into her face. "What happened?" Jenna demanded of the ER doctor. Her blood pressure was dangerously low when she arrived. "We're stabilizing her now," he said. "We suspect a systemic infection or possibly something related to her gastrointestinal tract." Gastrointestinal? Infection? Samantha's mind reeled. She had been sick for how long? After hours of testing, the diagnosis came: severe gut dysbiosis with leaky gut syndrome, leading to systemic inflammation and early signs of autoimmune dysfunction. The words meant little to Samantha in the moment, but Jenna understood and her face went white. Sam, this didn't happen overnight, Jenna said quietly, sitting by her sister's hospital bed. Your gut, it's been deteriorating for a long time. Your immune system is attacking your own body because your gut barrier broke down. Toxins, bacteria, they're leaking into your bloodstream. Samantha stared at her blankly. But I wasn't that sick, she whispered, her voice cracking. You were, Jenna said gently. You just didn't know how to listen. The truth hit Samantha harder than any diagnosis ever could. The bloating, the fatigue, the brain fog, the anxiety, the skin problems, they had all been connected, screaming at her that her gut was in crisis and she had brushed them off as normal. Now her normal had landed her in a hospital bed, fighting systemic inflammation that threatened her long-term health. For the first time, Samantha realized. Ignoring the gut doesn't just lead to stomach aches. It can dismantle your entire body from the inside out. She squeezed Jenna's hand. What do I do now? She asked, voice trembling. Jenna gave her a sad smile. We fix it, Sam. One day at a time. But the road ahead would be anything but easy. Samantha's discharge instructions were thick as a book. Dietary guidelines, prescriptions, follow-up appointments, supplement lists, pages and pages spelling out what she should have done years ago to protect her gut. The first big change hit her at breakfast the next morning. She stared at the usual box of cereal on her counter, reading the label for the first time in her life. Corn syrup. Artificial flavors. Hydrogenated oils. It was practically a chemical cocktail. Samantha sighed and shoved the box into the trash. Instead, she made herself a plain bowl of oatmeal topped with blueberries and a drizzle of honey. Simple. Whole. Alive. She had expected to feel better instantly, but the first few weeks were brutal. The die-off symptoms, Jenna explained, were her body's reaction to killing off the bad bacteria that had overgrown her gut. Samantha experienced migraines, flu-like aches, waves of nausea, and even deeper fatigue than before. Some days she wanted to give up, some days she almost did. It gets worse before it gets better, Jenna would remind her over FaceTime. Your body's cleaning house. Meanwhile, Samantha met with a gastroenterologist specializing in gut health. Dr. Morrison, a calm and patient man in his 50s, explained it in terms that finally clicked. Think of your gut like a garden, Samantha, he said. For years, weeds took over because you weren't planting the right seeds or tending the soil. Now we have to pull the weeds, replant, water, and protect it. It takes time, but a beautiful garden is worth it. Samantha liked that analogy. It made her feel less broken, less defective. Each day became a deliberate choice. She swapped processed foods for fermented ones like sauerkraut and kefir. She added prebiotic fibers, bananas, asparagus, garlic. To feed the good bacteria she was desperately trying to regrow. She meditated for 5 minutes each morning to calm her stress, knowing that cortisol could inflame her gut all over again if she wasn't careful. Slowly, achingly slowly, signs of life returned. Her skin began to clear, her energy no longer crashed mid-afternoon, the bloating eased, and the brain fog that had clouded her thoughts for so long began to lift, like sun breaking through after a storm. One evening, about 6 weeks after her hospital stay, Samantha caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror. Her face looked different, not just thinner, but brighter. More alive. Her eyes sparkled in a way they hadn't for years. She realized then how much she had normalized her own suffering. I thought that was just adulthood, she murmured to her reflection. I thought feeling awful was normal. It wasn't. Healing wasn't linear. Some days, Samantha backslid, eating something inflammatory at a friend's birthday party or pulling an all-nighter for a work deadline. Her gut would punish her with bloating, cramps, and fatigue for days afterward, reminding her how delicate the balance was. But now she listened. Now she fought for her body the way her body had been fighting for her all along. As the seasons changed, Samantha's life shifted with them. She prioritized rest. She chose friends who nurtured her spirit. She learned to say no to things that caused her stress. Most importantly, she promised herself this: never again would she ignore her gut, because the gut wasn't just about digestion. It was her first line of defense, her source of vitality, her true voice, the one that had been whispering, then shouting, then begging to be heard, and finally Samantha was listening. By the time Samantha hit the 6-month mark of her healing journey, her life had transformed in ways she never could have anticipated. Not just physically, but emotionally and mentally, too. She started taking things in stride. Where once she had been overwhelmed by the weight of work, family, and self-care, she now saw them as interconnected pieces of a balanced puzzle. Her gut was no longer just something she had to manage, it was a central part of her overall well-being. Samantha found herself devoting more time to the things that mattered most: her children, her marriage to Mark, who had always been supportive but had been so distant during the past few years, her own mental health. Every evening, after the kids were in bed, she and Mark would sit down and talk. She'd share the ups and downs of her day, the challenges of sticking to a new diet, the occasional slip-ups, the small victories. Mark had watched her go through the toughest parts of the healing process. He was amazed at her resilience. "Sam," he said one night, "I can't even describe how proud I am of you. You're doing more than just healing yourself. You're teaching us all how to be better together." It was a sentiment that echoed in her heart. Their bond grew stronger, and their home became a place of peace instead of chaos. Mark had even started cooking meals with her on weekends, learning how to make bone broth and fermented vegetables, but the changes didn't stop with her family. Samantha's work life began to change too. Her coworkers had noticed how much more focused she was at meetings, how her creativity had returned. She no longer relied on caffeine to push through long hours. Instead, she found clarity in the mornings and energy in the afternoons, thanks to the healing power of her gut. It wasn't just about feeling better anymore, it was about living better. And as Samantha's gut health improved, she began to share her journey with others. She opened up about her experience to her close friends, explaining how ignoring her gut for so long had almost destroyed her. Her vulnerability sparked something in her friends. They too started questioning their own health habits. Was it just stress that made them feel bad all the time? Was it really just age that made their energy fade after lunch? The ripple effect was just beginning. Samantha and her friends formed a weekly walking group where they not only got some exercise but talked about the things that had been bothering them. Mind and body. They discussed the foods that nourished their bodies, the stressors that weighed them down, and the mental blocks they needed to overcome. She became a quiet advocate for gut health, attending seminars and reading more on the subject. Slowly, she grew passionate about helping others. She even started a small blog about her journey, sharing recipes, stories, and research on the importance of gut health. Her blog gained traction, and soon she had a modest following of people who were also struggling with gut-related issues. They shared their stories, their victories, and their setbacks. Samantha realized something profound. Her gut wasn't just about her anymore. It had become a source of strength for everyone around her. Her body had healed, and now it was a tool she could use to help others heal too. The real healing wasn't just physical. It was spiritual. It was emotional. It was communal, and it all started with listening. Samantha had learned the hard way that the body's whispers turn into shouts when ignored for too long. The body was a delicate balance of systems that depended on one another, an orchestra that played in perfect harmony when everything was in tune. Her gut had been the first instrument to fall out of sync, but now everything was playing in harmony again. And the music was beautiful. 1 year after her health crisis, Samantha stood in front of a packed room at a wellness seminar, sharing her gut health journey with a group of people who, like her, had ignored the signs for far too long. Her heart raced slightly as she adjusted the microphone, but she smiled, feeling the strength of her body, her words, and the energy in the room. This was no longer just a story about healing her own gut. It was a movement, an awakening she had to share with others. "I'm not a doctor," she began, speaking to the audience, "but I learned something valuable through my own experience. I ignored my gut for years, and it almost cost me everything. What I realized is this: our gut isn't just about digestion. It controls so much more. It's our second brain. It's the foundation of our immune system. And when we neglect it, we're neglecting our whole selves." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle in the room. It wasn't just the bloating, or the brain fog, or the fatigue. It was the signs of imbalance that I ignored, thinking they were normal. But when your gut isn't right, your entire body suffers. My story is just one of many, but I can tell you this: gut health is not a trend. It's a necessity. The crowd nodded in agreement, and several people raised their hands, eager to ask questions about her journey. Samantha's story had gone from being a private struggle to an educational tool for others. She had found her purpose in helping people connect the dots between their physical and mental well-being and empowering them to take their health into their own hands. After the seminar, she took a moment to step outside. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the horizon. Samantha felt a sense of peace that had eluded her for most of her life. As she stood there, she realized just how far she had come. A year ago, she had been lying in a hospital bed, her body on the brink of collapse. Now, she was a symbol of transformation, not only for herself but for others as well. The journey hadn't been easy. There had been setbacks, moments of doubt, and the occasional slip-up. But it had been worth every step. She had learned how to listen to her body, and in doing so, she had become a healthier, happier, more vibrant person. She knew now that the key to good health wasn't about quick fixes or fad diets. It was about balance. It was about listening to your body, and above all, it was about honoring the gut, the very foundation of life itself. Samantha thought of her children, of Mark, and of the friends who had supported her along the way. They had all learned with her, grown with her, and were now living healthier, more conscious lives. She smiled, knowing that this was just the beginning of something much bigger than herself. And in the quiet moments when her gut felt at peace, Samantha felt more alive than ever before.